This is how I remember the 8 branches of the external carotid artery. And you know what? I like to give things importance, organize things in my mind according to hierarchy and importance. So I think that's part of how our brains remember things. So I'm going to treat these external carotid branches with respect, because this is not just some random meaningless minor arteries. This is the external carotid. This is like one of the two big main arteries that come up in your head. And these are the 8 branches. So it's like we work for the external carotid artery, you know? We are not some meaningless side character type thing. So I'm going to call it the 8 branches and put some respect on it. External carotid artery, the 8 branches, you know? These are the 8, you know? Like, whoa, those are the 8 branches. Like, whoa, like those are the 7 members of BTS. You know, oh, those are the top 10 guys in the NBA. You know what I'm saying? That sort of thing. That's how it should be in your mind. Like, okay, these are the 8. You know, these guys matter. All right. So I want to emphasize that importance, because that helps me later when I'm thinking, not get it jumbled up with other things in my head. All right. This is the external carotid artery. And the way I do it is I have it in pairs, and that was very helpful. I based it on the test day drawing from Scrubs. And basically they had it where you add a little line or whatever, diagonal, and that gives you your top pair. Then you have your back pair, 2 going backwards. Then you have 2 going forward, your front pair. Then you have just 2 going either way on the bottom. So those are your pairs: top, back, front, bottom. And the way it goes is you can draw a person from a side view. That's his tongue. That's his ear. And if you draw this thing, the top pair is going like that, right? This is his maxillary artery, by the way. So it's going like towards his nose sort of thing, you know, this area, nose, top lip type area. This is his superficial temporal. So it's going to kind of to his temples, you know. Maybe it should be more like that, but whatever. This is his back pair, going behind his ear. Front pair, they're both kind of going to his mouth. Then his bottom pair are both in his throat, right? So I love this pairs thing because it makes it so much easier for me, because it's basically an axis, like a 4-way axis: top, bottom, back, front. Nothing weird and random that you have to remember. It's very, like, you know, sensible. Like, okay, I know there's a top, a bottom, I know there's a back and a front. So these 2 in the back pair, and I'm going to write that as well. And you can keep referring. Remember, you should associate the bottom pair with your throat. So I'll actually do that first. There's the ascending pharyngeal, which is kind of a little higher, right? Because it's ascending. So you could even do it like that, right? And then there's the superior thyroid. You know your thyroid is a gland on your neck, on the front of your neck or the front of your throat. And it's kind of like a little bow tie, right? Thyroid. So it looks like a tie, the way it's shaped. It looks like a bow tie. And it's located on the front of your neck where a bow tie would be. So this bottom pair is like your neck pair or your throat pair. So they have the thyroid gland in the front, right? And then here in the back, ascending, I mean, not totally in the back and probably in real life on your body, but ascending pharyngeal. One's kind of ascending up, one's kind of going down to reach the top of the thyroid. That's why it's superior thyroid, because there's an inferior thyroid that supplies the bottom part of your thyroid, right? Okay, stop doing that. But this artery is coming down from above. So you can even draw them in the bottom pair, you can draw them like, up, sort of like up, and then this one can be sort of down, right? Because like I'm going down to the thyroid from above, which is why I end up supplying the superior part of the thyroid. And then I'm going up to your pharynx, which is also throat, right? Pharynx, throat. And I'm going up, ascending. So that's a throat pair. In the back, you have the back pair. One of them is the occipital artery. Okay, I'm gonna move the circle. It's annoying. Occipital artery. You know your occipital bone is right here. It's the backbone of your skull. So it's going right there to the occipital bone. Then the posterior auricular. Auricle means ear, right? So auricular means ear. Posterior auricular means it's going behind your ear. So you can see how occipital bone and behind ear is basically almost the same location. So these things, obviously they don't supply the exact same region. It's like, but it's very similar on a drawing, that region's very similar. So that's very helpful to remember where they go, because they pretty much go into the same area until they kind of, elongate, spread their own way or whatever. Then there's the facial artery in the front, right? Go into your face, right? And then there's the lingual artery under it. Lingual means tongue, right? Lingual, language, right? We use our tongues to speak language. So, you can see it going right there to your tongue. Again, very similar area. That's the front pair, going to the front of your face. These guys go to the back of your head. Then the top pair is a little unique because it's not like, they're not both like all the way at the top like that. It's like one of them goes to your temples and one of them goes like a little forward to your maxillary region. So yeah, but the thing that's helpful for that is these guys are very neat, right? Very neat, basically the same spot. These guys at the top and bottom are a little more, asymmetrical or whatever. It's like boom, boom, whereas these guys are just very boom, boom, Okay, that's it. I'm going to talk about the branches of the maxillary because the maxillary is probably the most important artery out of all of these, or the most important, big dog, most special artery out of all of these. But if you just want the 8 branches of the external carotid, or the 4 pairs as I call them, then that's the end. But the helpful thing is that the top pair are actually the most important pair, okay? We are the top dogs here. Because when we get into our infratemporal fossa that we were talking about, which is basically, if I draw a skull, cranium right there, then the mandible right there. If I draw that, and that's like an eye, that's like the nose hole. It's like right here, if you were to cut, or not if you were to, we actually did. If you were in lab, if you were to cut that, then the stuff in that space, that's your infratemporal fossa. So in that infratemporal fossa, the maxillary artery is the main artery there. It's the main artery there because this external carotid artery goes up, and then the superficial temporals kind of goes a little more like back in the thing, right? Because it's going to go like here. So it's like in this, it's like back. Right? It's coming from your neck, goes like that. Then the maxillary is like going to your maxillary. And in this fossa, the maxillary is very important. Like in this part of town, I'm very well known. I'm very important. The maxillary artery is like the main artery in the infratemporal fossa. Yeah. So that's very helpful just to make that connection. And so because of that, I'm going to now draw the branches of that maxillary. So again, use this as a chance, draw it and try to use the logic of the pairs if you like it, okay? So it's like at the bottom, there's a bottom pair. I know it's throat, so pharynx. I know it's throat, so thyroid, right? Superior thyroid because it's coming down to it from above. Then this one's going up. They're opposites, right? Opposite relationship. Down, up. So it's ascending pharyngeal. Then I know I have my front pair, facial lingual, my back pair, occipital, back of your skull, and behind your ear, so it must be posterior auricular. And then I have my maxillary here, superficial temporal going up to the temples. It's named for the temporal bone, but I think about the temples of your, like, you know, when you're massaging your temples, because that's also that location. So, okay, we're in the infratemporal fossa. We're looking at our maxillary artery. It's all wiggly and everything, like arteries are. And the way I think of it is it's like one up to your brain and one down to your teeth, right? So one up, one down for its branches. That one up to your brain is the middle meningeal. And if you remember, that one is super important because that's pretty much the main artery that supplies your meninges. The meninges being the covering around your brain. So this, if your brain is here, looking at your brain from above, and then the meninges is just this this thin layer covering it, which it's gonna be blue. It's like your brain is pink, right? But the meninges is blue. Not really. I'm just using that, like that. Then this middle meningeal artery is going like, it comes up from either side and it goes like this. And it covers your brain over from the top, or it covers the meninges, and it's like, I will feed you, I will give you blood. The middle meningeal. So it's very important. When you're looking at your brain from the top, that's really the only one you see. Whatever the other ones are, superior meningeal or whatever, you don't even see them. So this middle meningeal guy is very important. Main character. When you're talking about supplying the top, like the meninges above the brain, you know, with blood and feeding them, this guy is the main guy. So very important artery coming from the maxillary artery. So it's up, down, up to the brain, down to the teeth. Which one is down to the teeth? That's the inferior alveolar. So the alveolar are like the little alveolus means like a sac. So you probably know in your lungs there are the air sacs, the alveoli, the little things that hold oxygen and stuff and do the gas exchange. Well, in your teeth, they're also called alveoli. And if this is your jaw, and that's your maxilla, these holes are alveoli, these sacs. And then your teeth are in them. Your teeth sit in the sacs, okay? It's a beautiful, beautiful man that he drew here. Superior alveoli are the top lips teeth, or the top row of teeth. Inferior alveoli are the sacs for the bottom row of teeth. Superior, inferior. So it's very nice. Again, when you're in that fossa and the maxillary arteries running like that, right? Because when you get in that fossa, at the beginning, you can see your external carotid. It gives your superficial temporal, gives that. Then it gives your maxillary, gives that. And then your maxillary is the main one here. So going up is your middle meningeal artery, right? Up to the brain. Going down is your inferior alveolar artery, down to the teeth. See that? Goes down to your bottom row of teeth. So I have a pair here, up, down. You know, I have an opposite yin and yang relationship, and that helps me to remember, because if I remember one, I'll remember the other one in relation to it. What else is there after those two arteries? I'm sure there's more, but I don't really remember right now. This is mainly about just the eight branches, or the four pairs. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's not really about the maxillary branches anyway. That's a later thing, but this is what I remember now. Once you have your maxillary, it gives off an up and a down. It also, when it terminates, so when it reaches its end, the maxillary artery, when it reaches its end, it splits into these two deep temporal arteries, which I like to point out because if there's a superficial temporal, there's a deep temporal, right? And the deep temporal comes from the maxillary. So it's really like superficial temporal and max, they're like opposites, you know? They're diametrically opposed in that way because, like, I'm the superficial temporal. You're the deep temporal. So it doesn't look like that at first because it's not called deep temporal, it's called maxillary, you know? But it's like when you get to the end, you realize, oh, at the end, I'm actually deep temporal. So it's like deep temporal, superficial temporal. Now we have a perfect pair. So it's like these two, they're actually yin and yang in that way. So yeah, that's the 8 branches of the external carotid artery. External carotid artery. I use the blood drop so I don't have to write artery. And so that I always have in mind that arteries supply blood. Because I always want to, that's why I use red too for arteries, because I want to keep them very separate from nerves in my mind. So I don't get confused. Because a lot of nerves have similar names or the same name as arteries. So when I'm thinking about nerves, I'm thinking about electricity. I'm thinking about the color yellow. I'm thinking about, making a command, move, do this, commanding the body parts to do stuff. When I'm thinking about blood, I'm thinking about the opposite. Instead of being commanding and demanding, I'm feeding you, I'm nurturing you, I'm giving you oxygen, I'm giving you nutrients, are you hungry? That's arteries. So arteries and nerves completely different, completely opposite. I try to keep them very, very diametrically opposed in my mind. Okay, actually, in my opinion, it would be more like that. Because I'm the feeding, I'm the nice one, I'm the commanding one. But yeah, so I always try to put that, use my blood drop, remind myself if I'm looking at arteries rather than nerves, and I keep their function in mind to help me differentiate them from the nerves with similar names. So when I'm talking about this external carotid artery, I'm thinking about that big juicy artery in your neck. I'm imagining the blood flowing and everything. I'm thinking of it as red. You get what I'm saying? I'm trying to make it clear that it's not nerves in my mind. Okay, that's it. We do have a mnemonic for this that we talked about in class. Some anatomists like freaking out poor med students. Some anatomists like freaking out poor med students. You may know of a certain classmate who always says he doesn't like mnemonics because they just give you the first letter and don't help you understand things, connect things. And I tend to feel the same way. I really don't like that one because it literally only tells you the first letter of the word that doesn't matter. Like, it tells you superficial, but it doesn't tell you temporal, right? And it tells you superior, but it doesn't tell you thyroid. Or it tells you ascending, but not pharyngeal. It's like, okay, if you give me that hint that it's ascending, that could be like, or if you give me that hint that it's superficial, it's like, okay, now out of all the billion arteries in the body, the half of them that are superficial instead of deep, now I can choose from those. Wow, thanks for that hint. Obviously, it's not really like that. It's not really that like bad, but I like this pairs thing better because I don't have to run through like the list, some anatomist, blah, 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 blah. It's just like I only have 2 options for each possible thing. If it's in the front, there's 2 options. If it's in the back, there's 2 options. If it's up top, 2 options. If it's down your throat, 2 options. So, I really like that. But I say like I don't like mnemonics and stuff, but I will say that if you're trying to learn something and the concept, you're trying to make connections, but the concept is just not very meaningful, so you keep forgetting it, or you just want to be faster with it or whatever, a mnemonic can be very helpful as like that backup tool because it gives you that hint. So it's like, even though you kind of knew it, you weren't sure about one thing, then the mnemonic gives you the hint to confirm and be sure about it. So, so that's there if you want to use. I'm just going to put that there too. For anyone who's interested, some anatomists like freaking out poor med students. And then you just have to find a way to remember that goes with your external carotid artery. Yeah, maybe they're freaking you out by choking you out around your neck or something. But yeah, okay.